This is not a war of armies. It's a war of systems.
We study the effects of seventh-generation warfare on the common individual.
Algorithmic exclusion. Infrastructure coercion.
It shapes what you see.
What you buy.
And what you fear.
We study on how seventh-generation tools touch daily life.
Welcome back, everyone, to The Deep Dive. Today, we're diving into something huge, these massive shifts happening in global finance right now. Last time, we sort of left things hanging with a big question.
Right.
What new financial tech, or maybe what kind of non-dollar commodity backing? What could actually anchor a world order after the dollar?
And we're not just talking theory today.
Yeah, definitely not.
We're looking at the actual blueprints, what's being built right now across the globe to answer exactly that question you just posed.
Okay, so where do we start? There's so much noise out there.
Well, I think the key is to give you, the listener, a kind of shortcut through all that noise. There's a concept, an analytical framework that really helps make sense of why things feel so, well, unstable, why we seem to jump from crisis to crisis.
Okay, I think I know where you're going with this. It's that philosophical idea.
The Hegelian Dialectic? Yeah. Sounds a bit academic, maybe.
A little bit, yeah.
But honestly, once you grasp the pattern, these seemingly random events, they start to look a lot less random, more like, well, planned stages.
Explain that pattern quickly. How does it work in this context?
Sure. So the basic idea is you want a specific outcome, right? First, you create or highlight a problem, a crisis. That's the thesis.
Right.
Then that crisis naturally creates a reaction, usually fear, maybe anger. That's the antithesis.
People demand something be done.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that demand paves the way for you to introduce the solution you wanted all along the synthesis, a solution people might not have accepted without the crisis.
Got it. Thesis, antithesis, synthesis.
And our mission today really is to pull back the curtain on the two big solutions. We're calling them the two back doors being offered right now as the way out of this failing dollar system.
Two different doors. But the key insight, the real takeaway from the material we've looked at,
is that they both end up in the same place.
right? Consolidated, centralized control. Whether it looks like East versus West, digital versus resources, the destination is control.
That's the core idea we need to unpack.
Okay, let's unpack this, starting, I guess, with the thesis.
Yeah.
The problem itself, the collapsing dollar.
Right. So the whole thing starts with the thesis. The U.S. dollar system is weakening. The failing heart, as some of the analysis calls it. And you can see it in the data, I mean, objectively.
Yeah.
The dollar's share of global reserves, it's been drifting down for, 2 decades now?
Yeah, though it has kind of stabilized recently, around 58%. Still the biggest chunk, obviously.
Absolutely dominant still.
Yeah.
But the really interesting finding, I think, isn't just the number, it's how it's happening. The sources suggest this isn't some sudden market panic, like a crash.
No, it's framed more like tactical diversification. Countries are deliberately, slowly moving away.
Exactly. And institutionally, the official line is always, oh, it's just natural market forces, global capital, finding the best returns, risk diversification. Very passive language.
Benign, like it's just happening to us.
But that narrative that's just sort of happening, it potentially masks what the material suggests is the strategic reality, which is that this might be a managed decline, a calculated weakening.
Okay, why? Why manage it down instead of propping it up? Or just letting it crash if that's the goal?
Well, think about it. A sudden, chaotic collapse. That's unpredictable. Nobody really controls that.
Okay.
A managed decline, though, that gives the architects time. Time to build the new systems, the new rails we'll talk about.
And time to test the waters politically, see how much intervention people will accept.
Precisely. And that leads straight into the antithesis, the reaction part. You need catalysts. You need shocks to the system to accelerate the process and make people demand the new solution.
And we've had some pretty major dress rehearsals for that, haven't we?
Oh, yeah. The analysis consistently points to two big ones as crucial precursors.
2008, the global financial crisis.
That's number one. It wasn't just an economic mess. It set huge political precedents. Remember, too big to fail. Quantitative easing. Central banks stepping in globally with, well, unprecedented power and liquidity.
It normalized the idea of extraordinary measures, didn't it? That the Fed and others could and would intervene massively.
Fundamentally, it showed they had the tools and the will. Then came the second big one.
2020, the COVID crisis.
Right, and that cemented a different but equally vital precedent.
Which was more about direct intervention in people's lives. Payments, restrictions.
Exactly. The speed and scale of government action, lockdowns, stimulus checks, direct deposits. It showed how quickly governments could act, how deeply they could reach into the economy and individual finances when they declared an emergency.
And it created that urgency, that feeling that the old systems were maybe too slow, too fragile.
Yes. It accelerated the demand for fundamental restructuring, always framed, of course, as necessary for stability, for reducing systemic risk, for preventing the next crisis.
So these shocks, 2008, 2020, they're the antithesis, the engineered chaos or chaos that's harnessed.
To create the public clamor for a solution, the synthesis.
Okay, so the dollar's weakening is the thesis. The crises create the fear, the antithesis. Now the stage is set. What's the synthesis? What are these pre-planned solutions they want us to walk towards?
Well, the analysis points to not one, but two main paths being offered, both presented as salvation from the chaos, but, as we said, both ultimately leading towards that core goal, consolidated centralized control. We're calling them the two back doors.
Let's define those clearly then. What's behind door number one?
Door number one is what you might call the digital path. Think U.S. Western-led central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, supported by things like instant payment systems, the promise, speed, efficiency, maybe even inclusion, the control mechanism, purely digital, control by code, algorithmic control.
Okay. And door number two, the alternative.
Door number two is the resource path. This is more the anti-US Bloc's answer, you could say. Instead of just code, it's anchored in tangible things, gold, oil, other key commodities. The promise here is stability, real value, a break from debt-based systems. But the control, it comes from dependency on those physical resources and who manages them.
Two very different approaches on the surface.
Seemingly, yes, but we need to look under the hood at the plumbing being installed for both.
All right, let's walk through door number one first. The digital path, control by code.
Okay, door number one. The crucial thing to understand right off the bat is this isn't just theoretical anymore. The digital rails, the infrastructure, it's largely built, it's live, it's kinetic, as the source material puts it.
Even though, like a retail CBDC, something you and I would use directly that's still officially just being researched, right, needs Congress to approve it in the U.S.
That's true for the retail side, yes. Public-facing digital dollars. But the underlying wholesale and interbank infrastructure is much further along, and that's critical.
Okay, so let's start domestically in the U.S. You're talking about FedNow.
Exactly. FedNow went live in 2023, and let's be super clear. FedNow itself is not a CBDC.
Right. It's an instant payment system for banks.
Yes, a 247 real-time gross settlement system. Banks use it to clear payments between themselves instantly instead of waiting hours or days.
But why is it so relevant to the CBDC discussion then?
Because it builds the capacity for speed and oversight across the entire system. It's scaling incredibly fast already, over 600 banks and institutions involved.
Wow, 600 plus books.
Processing, as you mentioned earlier, over 1 million transactions a day now. And maybe most importantly, look at the transaction limits.
They're going up.
Dramatically. By late 2025, the plan is to allow single transactions up to $10 million.
10 million instantly. Okay, that's significant.
It shows the system can handle massive volumes at high velocity. So imagine if, down the line, new regulations get layered on top of FedNow, rules requiring banks to report instantly or even implement certain checks or controls on transactions flowing through it.
The plumbing is already there to handle it.
The technical capacity is there, the pipes are wide enough and fast enough.
Okay, that's the domestic piece.
Yeah.
What about internationally? Cross-border payments are notoriously slow and expensive.
And that's where Project Cedar comes in. This was an experiment, a pilot project run by the New York Fed.
Focused on wholesale CBDC, right?
Right.
Bank-to-bank stuff, internationally.
Exactly. Testing if a wholesale CBDC could speed up cross-border, cross-currency payments. And the results.
They were successful, I take it.
Very successful. The project is officially complete and proven. It demonstrated they could settle foreign exchange transactions, swapping one currency for another between banks in under 15 seconds.
15 seconds. Compared to, what, days currently?
Yeah.
Through correspondent banks.
Yeah. The old system involves multiple banks, messages back and forth, settlement delays. It can take days. Project Cedar showed you could do it almost instantly using distributed ledger tech.
So the technical capability for a much faster, more efficient, potentially more centralized wholesale system, it exists. It's proven.
It provides the option value, as some analysts call it. The tech is sitting there, ready. If a major crisis hits that engineered chaos, the antithesis in the political will suddenly shifts.
They could theoretically flip the switch and roll out this faster, more controllable wholesale system pretty quickly.
That's the potential. The capability is developed.
Mhm.
Now, this is where we need to look beyond the promises of just efficiency. We need to examine the features that are being designed into these potential CBDC systems, according to the research. Features that go beyond just moving money fast.
Right. This is where the control aspect really comes into focus. You mentioned control by code. Programmability.
Yes. Programmability. This is the potential for physical control, really. What some of the more critical analyses are calling digital enslavement, which sounds harsh, but let's look at the functions.
Okay.
It means building rules directly into the money itself. The digital token, the CBDC unit, could have conditions coded into it.
Like what kind of conditions? Give me some examples from the analysis.
Okay, well, the sources consistently point to the technical possibility. Again, this isn't necessarily happening tomorrow, but the capability is being discussed and designed for things like expiry dates. Your funds have to be spent by a certain date, maybe to force spending during a downturn.
Okay, like digital coupons you have to use?
Sort of. Then there's geofencing. The money only works within a specific geographic area. Maybe for targeted local stimulus or potentially for control.
Only spendable in this city or this state.
Right. And then the one that raises the most eyebrows, restricted purchases.
Meaning the money itself could prevent you from buying certain things.
The technical design allows for that, yes. Using merchant category codes, the system could potentially limit or block spending on specific categories. The examples often cited are things like restricting purchases of sugary drinks, alcohol, maybe even gasoline or fossil fuels based on policy goals.
Wow. Okay, the justification would be public health or climate change or...
Exactly. The justifications are always framed benignly. Efficient fiscal stimulus, promoting healthy choices, ensuring regulatory compliance.
But the underlying capability...
According to the analysis, the capability enables direct, granular behavioral control through the money itself. If what you can buy, when you can buy it, and where you can buy it can be dictated by code, that fundamentally changes your economic autonomy.
It's a profound shift.
Okay.
That's the physical control aspect. What about the mental or surveillance side?
Well, that's inherent in the design, too. A centralized digital ledger, by its nature, creates a mandatory digital trail. Every transaction is recorded, traceable, linked to an identity. It's centralized surveillance by default.
Eliminating financial anonymity, essentially.
Pretty much. All economic behavior becomes visible to the central authority managing the ledger and subject to algorithmic analysis, auditing, whatever they want to run on the data.
And this isn't just theoretical linkage, is it? The sources connect this directly to identity systems.
Yes. The documentation and research explicitly linked CBDC frameworks to mandatory digital IDs and potentially even biometrics, fingerprint, facial scan, whatever, linking the transaction directly to your physical body.
So the transaction isn't just recorded, it's tied immutably to you.
Right. Again, the justification is know your customer, anti-money laundering, preventing illicit finance.
Standard compliance reasons.
But the implication, according to the critical analysis, is a system of near-perfect transactional visibility and therefore potential control, making sure everyone can buy and sell, but only within the rules of the system and only if they participate in the ID infrastructure.
Okay, so Doherty, #1, instant rails are ready, the wholesale tech is proven, and the potential features include programmability for behavioral control and built-in surveillance linked to digital ID.
I have to ask, though, terms like enslavement, rationing, isn't that maybe jumping the gun a bit, especially in, say, Western democracies where there are supposed to be checks and balances?
That's a fair challenge. And the analysis isn't saying these extreme features will be activated tomorrow wholesale. The point being made, I think, is about the capability being built into the architecture now. The sources use that strong language, digital enslavement, to highlight the potential, the logical endpoint, if those controls were fully utilized. The existence of the switch itself, the power to potentially restrict or monitor every transaction, that's the fundamental shift, regardless of whether the switch is flipped today or not. It's about the option being created, the power consolidating.
Exactly. The technical capacity precedes the political decision to use it. The capability is the core concern highlighted in the material.
Understood. That sets the stage clearly for Door #1. Now let's pivot to the other side. What about Door #2, the resource path? Okay, so Door #2. This is presented as the alternative, right?
Yeah.
Rejecting the debt-based dollar, moving towards something supposedly more stable, backed by real stuff.
That's the narrative. Stability through physical resources. But just like with Door #1, the first thing to realize is that the financial plumbing for this alternative system is also being built. It's also kinetic. It's not just talk.
They're not just complaining about the dollar, they're actively building ways around it.
Absolutely. And the flagship project here, the one getting a lot of attention, is Project mBridge.
Right, mBridge. What is that exactly and where does it stand?
So mBridge stands for Multiple Central Bank Digital Currency Bridge. It's a joint project involving the BIS Innovation Hub, kind of a central bank for central banks tech lab, and crucially, the central banks of China, Hong Kong, Thailand, and the UAE.
Okay, a serious group.
Very serious. And the key point, this isn't just a research matter, mBridge reached its minimum viable product, its MVP stage, in mid-2024.
Meaning it's operational, it's actually moving money.
Yes. Real live transactions are happening on the platform. As of mid-2024, the reports indicated over 171 million US dollars equivalent had already been transacted across it.
$171 million. Okay, so it's not huge volume yet, but it works. How does it achieve the speed?
It uses distributed ledger technology, DLT blockchain, basically, but in a specific way for central banks. It allows for what's called atomic settlement. Imagine China wants to pay Thailand. Instead of routing dollars through US banks, the mBridge platform allows the PBOC's digital yuan and the Bank of Thailand's digital baht to be swapped directly, instantly, peer-to-peer on the ledger.
Cutting out the middleman, cutting out the dollar, and cutting out the time delay.
Exactly. Settlement happens in seconds, not days.
Yeah.
And the reported cost savings are significant too, maybe up to 50% compared to the old correspondent banking fees.
This is a direct challenge to the dollar's role as the world's intermediary currency for trade.
It's designed to be. And the political momentum is building. Remember who joined recently?
Saudi Arabia, June 2024. That was big news.
Huge signal. Saudi Arabia joining as a full participant. That immediately raises the possibility of oil sales, petroflows, eventually being settled over mBridge, bypassing the petrodollar system entirely.
Wow, okay. And there's talk of expanding this further.
Yes, there's the concept of a BRICS bridge, potentially layering on top or integrating with mBridge. The idea is of a broader platform for BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and the newer members, to trade using their own digital currencies or a potential new unit. Again, completely outside the SWIFT and dollar framework.
So just like Door #1, the rails for Door #2 are being laid, tested, and now operational, governed by a different set of authorities, primarily non-Western ones.
Precisely. A separate centralized system is emerging.
Yeah.
Now, let's get to the backing. If it's not just fiat code, like a CBDC, what actually anchors this system? What's the resource part?
Yeah, that core question from the start. What's the non-dollar commodity backing?
Well, the analysis suggests it's not quite like the old gold standard, where you could walk in and demand physical gold for your currency. Not yet, anyway. It's more of a behavioral anchor, based on the visible, large-scale accumulation and the implicit backing of vital physical resources.
Starting with gold. We hear a lot about central banks buying gold.
An incredible amount. Central banks, especially Russia and China, but others too, went on a historic gold buying spree from 2022 through 2024, and it's continuing.
How much are we talking about?
The BRICS group collectively, just those core nations, now hold over 6,000 tons of gold reserves. That's something like 21% of all official gold holdings globally.
6,000 tons. Okay, but if it's not directly convertible, what's the point? Just shiny insurance.
It serves multiple purposes, according to the analysis. One, definitely de-risking from the dollar. If your reserves are in U.S. treasuries, they can be sanctioned or frozen. Gold held in your own vaults, much harder. Two, yes, financial insurance, a universally accepted asset if things get really chaotic. But three, and maybe most importantly right now, It's a signal. It projects stability, tangible value, a contrast to the perceived endless debt creation of the West. It backs the credibility of their alternative system, even if not the currency directly, unit for unit.
Okay, so gold is a foundation, a signal. What about the other big one, energy? Oil, the petro-yuan.
This is where we see actual trade flows shifting away from the dollar right now, especially in specific bilateral lanes. China is actively pushing to settle more of its massive energy imports in its own currency, the yuan.
With Russia, obviously, post-sanctions.
Hugely with Russia. The numbers are staggering. Their bilateral trade hit around $245 billion in 2024. And get this. In the first quarter of 2025, 92.4% of the settlements for that trade were done directly in yuan or rubles.
Wow, over 92%.
Yeah.
Completely bypassed the dollar.
Completely. For that specific, very large energy and commodity flow, the dollar is now irrelevant.
And they're trying this with Gulf producers, too, beyond the Saudi mBridge connection.
Discussions are ongoing. It's slower going there because the petrodollar system is deeply entrenched, but the desire to settle in local currencies, or yuan, is clearly growing among oil exporters, too.
So while the global price of oil might still be in dollars mostly.
The actual settlement of the physical barrels, especially between China and its key suppliers, is increasingly happening outside the dollar system. It chips away at the dollar's dominance transaction by transaction.
So the anchor isn't just one thing, it's a basket.
That seems to be the most likely model emerging. A resource basket. Think gold, oil, natural gas, maybe key industrial metals, uranium, rare earths. The things economies physically need. The stability comes from the perceived backing of this basket, and the control comes from the centralized management and pricing of these vital resources by the key hubs in this alternative bloc, like China and Russia. Dependency creates its own form of control.
Okay, so DOR #1 offers control via digital code and surveillance. DOR #2 offers control via dependency on centrally managed physical resources. They look like opposites. How do they resolve? What's the ultimate synthesis here?
Right, so we've walked through both DORs. DOR #1, the digital CBDC path, promising efficiency but enabling code-based control and surveillance. DOR #2, the resource path, promising stability but creating dependency on centrally managed commodities. They feel like opposing forces, West versus East, digital versus physical. But you're saying the synthesis, the end result, is actually the same. That's the really crucial insight, the gnosis, or the deeper understanding, according to the source material. The sobering truth is that both of these paths, despite their apparent opposition, converge on the same functional outcome. Consolidated central control.
How so? Let's break that down. For DOR #1, the U.S. Western Digital Path.
Okay, with DOR #1, the power structure might look familiar. It stays largely centralized with the existing authorities, the Fed, other Western central banks, the governments. What some analysts metaphorically call a hollow crown. But these authorities gain powerful new tools, digital tools. The CBDC framework, or even just layering controls onto instant payment rails like FedNow, allows for much deeper surveillance and automated enforcement of rules directly through the code.
So the control is more direct, more algorithmic, enforced internally within the digital system, digital chains.
Precisely. Now look at DOR #2, the Anti-US Bloc, the resource path. Here, the geopolitical center of power might shift away from the U.S. dollar's leverage towards, say, a group of non-G7 hubs, likely centered around China due to its sheer scale and resource appetite.
Power moves geographically.
But control is still centralized. It's maintained through the coordinated management of those vital global resources, energy, food, metals, and through the operation of their own centralized ledger, like mBridge, for settling the trade in those resources.
So the control is maybe more external, binding nations through their dependency on these essential physical supplies, resource chains.
You could put it that way. Whether the chains are digital or forged from resource dependency, the end result is a system where economic activity is visible to and ultimately managed by a central coordinating authority or a small group of them.
Which means the choice being presented to the world, choose our efficient digital system versus choose our stable resource-backed system. That choice is.
It's potentially an illusory choice. A psyche trap, as one source graphically puts it.
A trap for the mind, making us think we're choosing freedom when we're just choosing the style of control.
That's the argument. The conflict itself, the geopolitical tension, the competing narratives, that is the mechanism, the Hegelian antithesis, driving everyone to pick a side, to adopt one of the two new centralized systems.
So the world financial system fragments, yes, maybe into two big blocks, West CBDC versus East Resource Cosmos, let's say.
But both blocs end up with systems designed for universal, non-private, centrally managed transactional visibility and control. The fragmentation serves the ultimate goal of getting everyone onto a new digital or resource-linked ledger, away from the old, messier, more private ways of transacting.
Okay, that's a sobering perspective. If this conflict is the mechanism, then we, the listeners, need to know what to watch for. What are the signs that things are moving definitively down one path or the other, or towards this synthesized control?
Right, we need indicators, tripwires, what signals a real shift. The analysis suggests two main potential trajectories. First, there's the lit path. This is seen as maybe the more probable scenario, at least initially. It's a quieter consolidation of control.
What does that look like in the U.S. West?
On the U.S. side, it means probably avoiding a big, splashy, controversial launch of a retail CBDC that requires direct public buy-in.
Oh.
Instead, you see a deepening of the wholesale and instant payment rails. FedNow gets bigger, faster, more integrated. Project Cedar's tech perhaps gets quietly incorporated into interbank systems, and the control, the programmability, creeps in not through the CBDC itself, but through policy overlays on the existing system, meaning new banking regulations, stricter reporting requirements tied to FedNow transactions, maybe rules pushing banks to implement certain compliance checks or limitations at the account level, the endpoints. Control moves to the intermediary banks, mandated by the regulators.
More subtle, less direct confrontation. And what about the other side, the counterblock on this lit path?
They keep building quietly, too. Project mBridge adds more participants, maybe some smaller energy producers first. Key energy trade routes selectively start settling in local currencies or yuan, not all at once, but strategically. And their central banks just keep steadily buying gold, building that reserve base without fanfare.
Okay, so the lit path is gradual, almost stealthy consolidation on both sides. What's the alternative? The dark path.
The dark path is the wild card. It's shock accelerated. Think another major crisis.
Like a worse financial crash, a major cyber attack on the payment system, a huge geopolitical event disrupting supply chains.
Any of those, yeah. Something that creates genuine panic and breaks the existing system's functionality. In that scenario, the established authorities, the Hollow Crown, might be forced to act decisively for the sake of stability.
And that's when they might roll out something more overt.
That's the fear. Implementing, say, a temporary emergency CBDC, maybe initially positioned as non-private or limited use, just to keep payments flowing, but in doing so, bypassing the normal legislative debate, potentially hardwiring in features like rationing logic, you can only buy X amount of fuel, or strict merchant category rules from the outset justified by the emergency.
A crisis used to fast-track the end-state controls.
That's the dark path scenario outlined.
Okay, these are scenarios. Let's get concrete. What specific news items, what headlines should someone listening be watching for as genuine tripwires?
All right, 4 key things to monitor. 1, on the U.S. side, any official shift from CBDC research to actual design or pilot. Look for things like a formal pilot program involving actual consumer wallets, or the Treasury Fed issuing a request for proposal, RFP, for companies to build components of a retail CBDC. That signals intent moving beyond theory.
Okay, research versus design pilot. Got it.
2, still U.S.-focused. Watch for those policy overlays on existing rails like FedNow. Any new regulations that start limiting how FedNow can be used, like restricting payments to certain types of businesses, merchant category codes, or, crucially, regulations that require banks to build in programmability features for compliance purposes, that's a major red flag for creeping control.
So new rules for FedNow or banks connected to it? What about the other side?
3, monitor mBridge expansion. Specifically, watch for an official production launch announcement moving beyond the MVP stage. And even more importantly, watch for who joins as full participants. Another major energy exporter, especially from the Gulf, signing on fully would be a huge signal that significant energy flows are being strategically redirected off the dollar rails.
So mBridge going fully live or landing another big energy fish?
Yes. And finally, 4, look for any formal commodity references in FX or trade settlement mechanisms from the BRICS bloc. Meaning, even if they don't launch a fully gold-backed currency, if they establish, say, a BRICS foreign exchange window or a trade settlement platform where the pricing formula explicitly references the price of gold or oil or a basket of commodities, even without direct convertibility.
That acts as a soft anchor, tying the value implicitly to real stuff.
Exactly. It's a powerful signal that they are behaviorally anchoring their alternative system to tangible resources, moving away from pure fiat. A soft anchor signal. #tag outro.
Okay, this has been a lot to take in, but incredibly important. We've gone through the Hegelian dialectic, the engineered problem of the failing dollar, the crises creating the reaction, and the two solutions, the two back doors being presented. And the core truth, the aletheia, as some sources might say, seems to be that it's not really about choosing debt fiat versus resource fiat.
No, the real takeaway is recognizing the plumbing. The centralized infrastructure being installed globally under both banners.
Whether it's digital chains or resource chains, the direction of travel is towards more centralized visibility and control.
That's the synthesis we need to see clearly. And if that's the case, then true sovereignty, real autonomy, probably isn't found by simply picking door #1 or door #2.
So what's the alternative? How does someone listening navigate this, protect themselves?
Well, the analysis suggests focusing on practical resilience, not getting caught entirely within either emerging architecture.
Okay, practical steps. What does that look like?
3 key areas, maybe. First, multi-rail fluency, meaning don't rely on just one way to pay or transact. Get comfortable using your bank account, sure, but also credit debit cards, maybe the new instant payment rails like FedNow, if applicable, and definitely lawful physical cash where possible and practical. Practice having failovers. Don't let your entire economic life depend on a single digital pipe that someone else controls.
Diversify your payment methods. Okay, what else?
Second, offline records. Keep your own independent records. Proof of payments, key financial statements, maybe even inventories if you run a business. Don't rely solely on the digital ledger provided by the bank or the payment system to be the only record of your economic reality. Have your own backup, your own proof.
Because the official record could potentially be altered or accessed or used against you in a control system.
Or simply become unavailable if there's a glitch or an outage. Independent records provide resilience.
Makes sense. And the third thing?
This one's more of a mindset. Verification discipline.
Verification discipline.
Yeah. Treat all the official promises, safety, security, efficiency, inclusion, stability. Treat them as claims that need to be rigorously tested against one fundamental question. Who ultimately gains the control? Who gets the switch rights in this new system?
Does this new technology, this new regulation, ultimately give more power, more visibility, more control to a centralized authority?
Exactly. Regardless of the justification given, if the answer is yes, then you need to recognize it objectively as a step towards diminished individual autonomy, even if it offers some convenience.
So be fluent across payment rails, keep offline records, and constantly ask who benefits, who gains control.
That seems to be the practical aegis, the shield, recommended by the analysis. And it leads to maybe one final thought to leave people with.
Go for it.
We've laid out how this conflict, door #1 versus door #2, digital chains versus resource chains, could be seen as a staged battle, a dialectic designed to drive everyone onto some form of new, universal, centrally monitored system. If neither central hub, neither the digital West nor the resource East ultimately offers genuine economic freedom, then what does true economic autonomy actually look like? Does it have to exist outside these emerging digital ledgers altogether? And if so, what form could that even take in the future?
A challenging question indeed.
Yeah.
Something for all of us to think about. Thank you for that deep dive.
Thank you.